Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Vault XL. This commentary is pertaining to Sean Puffy Combs. As most of you know who've been following breaking news today, he was indicted by a grand jury, New York grand jury, arrested for sex trafficking and racketeering charges. You will hear a lot of gross information pertaining to allegations against Sean Combs. I will interject in between the information. Thank you for your time. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $sign DeGanji 129 Cash App. Hello, Skylar. Thank you for joining me.
Travel visa.
Sorry about that. Brief intermission. Everybody's got to get their money. Hope everyone is well. A lot of information to dissect.
The U.S. Attorney for New York.
My name is Damian Williams, and I'm the U.S. Attorney here in the Southern District of New York. Today I'm announcing the unsealing of a 3-count indictment, charging Sean Combs with racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, interstate transportation for prostitution. The indictment alleges that between at least 2008 and the present, Combs abused, threatened, and coerced victims to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. As alleged in the indictment, to carry out this conduct, Sean Combs led and participated in a racketeering conspiracy that used the business empire he controlled to carry out criminal activity, including sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and the obstruction of justice. Let me say a little bit more about the charges. The indictment alleges that Combs abused and exploited women and other people for years, and in a variety of ways. As alleged, Combs used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sexual performances with male commercial sex workers, some of whom he transported or caused to be transported over state lines. Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded them. The freak-offs sometimes lasted days at a time, involved multiple commercial sex workers, and often involved a variety of narcotics.
I want to stop there before we get into the narcotics. So now we're talking about sex trafficking people interstate, in the United States and also abroad, that it has been mentioned. So how many people has he hired total? I'm going to ask all those questions. How many people has he hired? You hear he hired men, sex workers, very, very sketchy, because we know that a lot of male sex workers go both ways. So you also got to ask yourself about protection. Are we later going to hear down the road that some of these people are HIV positive and that some of the women, men, all the people who engaged in sex activities at Sean's house hotels are HIV positive and also have contracted diseases? Because I also wondered that about Cassie. I told myself that today before prepping for this live stream. She had to have had contracted some diseases. There's no way I'm going to sit here in my right mind and believe she's never gotten some type of gonorrhea, syphilis, trichomonas, something. Could be herpes as well, because nobody's going to sit here and think all these people having sex with each other are pulling out condoms. You know, men today don't even like using condoms. So I'm supposed to believe 15, 16 years ago, men were using condoms. These men, these sex workers were using condoms. No, I don't believe that. I don't even think Sean used condoms. And he's probably a carrier. And I think they need to do that as well. They need to test him to see if he is HIV positive. And boy, would that be a shitstorm. Hello? How many people has he hired? Men and women. Where did he get the sex workers from? Will that be revealed in the indictment? Where did he get them from? Did he just hear of people word of mouth from other people in the industry? Or he went to a company that had sex workers. Where did the sex workers come from? Or did he go on personal sites and get the sex workers? I'm very curious to that.
Ketamine, ecstasy, and GHB.
We'll go back on the drugs.
Transported over state lines. Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded them. The freak-offs sometimes lasted days at a time, involved multiple commercial sex workers, and often involved a variety of narcotics, such as ketamine, ecstasy, and GHB.
So now we're talking about different drugs. Ketamine, we heard that mentioned with Matthew Perry's death. What is it? I don't know. I'll feel free to Google it and bring you back information because I don't know anything about that. I don't use drugs and don't sell them, so I don't know what ketamine is. Anyway, this is where it shows conspiracy. You're buying these drugs. You have access to these drugs. You're housing these drugs. You're going to hear later about weapons. You already know you're doomed right there. Drugs, weapons in the same location, coercion, forced labor, which will be the prostitution. You're going to hear more about that as well. Then abuse, which would be hitting persons, being violent, pulling hair. You are done. He's done. Where I have a problem with this information is about the days. Obviously, they have audio, video of him housing people for days with the sex trafficking and the sex acts themselves. So I'm supposed to sit here and think in my right mind. Nobody ever got up to eat, go to the bathroom. I find this very strange. Say what, A-Balance? Diddy was going to do the blackmailing because he thought he was on top. Somebody allowed Diddy to get money. What are you talking about? Somebody allowed him to get the money. What are you talking about, A-Balance? How are you doing? So that's one part of the indictment that's strange to me. The filming it for days. And you're also going to hear about IV drugs, drugging the people. So one can say, well, he drugged them, maybe put something in their drink. Then they used IV, to keep them, sustain them from being, dehydrated, passing out, so on and so forth. But it's still weird to me that this is going to go on for days and nobody's using the bathroom. Nobody is saying, hey, I got to go somewhere else. I got something else I got to go do. That's where I'm a little fuzzy on that. But obviously they have information. Naturally, they have video to show these winded freak-offs lasting longer than 6 hours, 8 hours. But it's just hard in my mind to fathom days of naked bodies just lying around and nobody's going to the bathroom. Nobody's saying, hey, I'm hungry. Hey, can I get a bagel? Just saying. Just throwing it out there.
Phones distributed to the victims to keep them obedient and compliant. As alleged, when Combs didn't get his way, he was violent, and he subjected victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse so that they would participate in the freak-offs, and that Combs hit, kicked, threw objects at, and dragged victims, at times by their hair. On one occasion in March of 2016, that conduct was captured on video and later reported in the media.
So this person he's speaking of would be Miss Cassie. I think most of us know this. Many people have their opinions pertaining to she and he, how long this went on. And I also want to touch on that as well with the prostitutes. And I'm going to tie it in with her as well. Many people are going to be judgmental for the obvious reason. When you start talking about going past day one, because this isn't your typical type of situation. How can I explain this? Why would you let it go on? Him picking different people to assault, hire is one thing. But windedly you being involved, people are going to judge you. That's just the way it is. With Cassie, one could say, well, she liked him, she cared for him, she just did whatever he wanted her to do, blah, blah, blah. But then there's still going to be people who will say, well, but the things he's asking it's not, we're not talking about just a violent, abusive, abusive as far as what I'm trying to say, verbally, mentally, gaslighting you. You're talking about somebody forcing you to have sex with another human being. So why would you want to do that? And then somebody say, well, she must have liked it. Why would you keep doing it? Because what I'm trying to understand is this indictment itself. It's going from 2008 up until the present. There is no way in my right mind I am going to sit here and think, Sean is 54 years of age. He will be 55 November 4th. He didn't wake up in 2008 and decided to start doing these things. This is just what they got some proof on of the allegations. 2008 up until now. But who's going to go back past 2008? Will it matter? Maybe not. Because they have to stick, I guess, within the time frame that they've allotted, which is 2008 to the present. But will we hear of things that went on before 2008? Because I have a feeling, which is a natural assumption, when you're dealing with a sadist, they didn't wake up at 50 plus, 40 plus and said, I think I want to start tying people up. I want to start hiring prostitutes and sex workers to have sex with my girlfriend. There's no way I believe that. He's been doing this stuff. It probably was a slow burn. I've been using that word lately. It was a slow burn into the abyss, but he was slow burning probably a multitude of years back. And we're going to go far back, like to the 90s, because that's when that sadism starts popping off. You understand what I'm saying? Especially with young college boys, college students, that sadism starts to seep out. So I won't doubt he's had some issues from childhood, high school. Naturally, he goes away to school, went away to college, Howard University. Them ways start seeping out a little bit. You know what I mean? Not saying drastically, but you start doing some deviant stuff you ain't got no business, such as SA. I won't doubt that he's done that in his youth with someone, maybe plural. And then that leads to other things. Because I always talk about this when I'm talking about true crime as far as children and also with grown adults. How far are you going to go? How far are you going to take it? Because that's the one thing you're learning and you're hearing more and more with these sadists, such as what you've heard with the Soto case. It starts off with one thing, and then you hear that it's some other things. And then you're telling yourself, like, okay, so what else are they going to add? What else are they going to add? That's the whole point. These people, nothing can satisfy them. That's why they keep doing all this extra stuff. See, peeping in windows, looking through cracked doors, putting cameras under doors, stalking, verbally abusive, sexually abusive, forcible sex. It goes in stages, and that's what you have here with Sean. He's no different than Epstein, Weinstein, R. Kelly. What's next? Who's going to be next? Who's going to be next? Because no way I can believe in my mind, my right mind, there is not another Sean Combs out there that is also famous, wealthy, well-known. Oh, you can best believe. There's somebody else about to rise up and take his place as well.
Specifically, Combs kicked, dragged, and threw a vase at a victim in a Los Angeles hotel when the victim was attempting to flee. As alleged, these assaults often resulted in injuries to the victims, which took days or weeks to heal. In addition to the violence, the indictment alleges that Combs threatened and coerced victims to get them to participate in the free-offs. He used the embarrassing and sensitive recordings he made of the freak-offs as collateral against the victims. And the indictment alleges that he maintained control over the victims in several ways, including by giving them drugs, by giving and threatening to take away financial support or housing, by promising them career opportunities, by monitoring their whereabouts, and even by dictating their physical appearance.
Now, this allegation here, I'm assuming this is also Cassie. So I'm assuming she's given the state's attorney all of this information about her relationship with Sean, and she assumingly she's wrapped up in these allegations, because you can see this is kind of personal. A person watching what you're doing, how you look, that's personal. That's not something you'd be doing with a stranger. So I'm assuming this is Cassie. These allegations that the attorney is mentioning here, this is pertaining to her. Watching her every movement, holding over her head, where you're going to live, where you're going to work. Probably was giving her money, probably paying for her apartment, condo, wherever she was staying, because we did learn she had a condo or apartment or whatever. So I do believe this is who he's speaking of in this commentary.
Because of all of this, the indictment alleges that the victims did not believe they could refuse Combs without risking their security or facing more abuse. The indictment also alleges other acts of violence undertaken by Combs and others, including violence against witnesses to his abuse, kidnapping, and arson. The indictment alleges that on more than one occasion, Combs carried or brandished firearms to intimidate and threaten victims and witnesses. Now, Combs did not do this all on his own. As I mentioned, Combs has been charged with RICO conspiracy. He used his business and employees of that business and other close associates to get his way. Those individuals allegedly included high-ranking supervisors in the business, personal assistants, security staff, and household staff.
So now we're looping in other people. So will other people be charged? Because one thing we've seen with these type of cases, they might get a few years depending on the role that they played. Miss Max, what's her name? Maxwell, Miss Ghislaine, who worked with Weinstein. Epstein. She was a right-hand lady. Okay, they got proof of that. She was a right-hand lady. So who was his right-hand lady or male? How many people helped him? Because that's what they're saying. This is an enterprise. He didn't do this alone. It wasn't just he invited some people over, played sex games and ordered people around and drugged somebody with their hair, all this type of nonsense, bringing in drugs. Other people had to be involved, such as the drug dealer, the supplier, who's booking the flights. He's not doing all this on his own. Obviously not. As we learned with R. Kelly. Here we had this very famous individual who's very talented, but couldn't read a lick. So we already know he had to have help, because R. Kelly can't read. So somebody had to book the flights, had to go in the bank accounts to get the money out. We learned that during the investigation years ago, before he was put in jail. He had never even went to the bank on his own. Never went to a bank. It's baffling information. Never went to a bank, his own damn bank, to go see how much damn money he had in the bank, even withdraw money out, letting other people do it. So, which is a dangerous thing. As Oprah would say, always sign your own checks, always monitor your own money. So then you have this information about R. Kelly. He's not even navigating his own damn bank account. Now, I won't doubt Sean's savvy. He's smart. He's college educated. He was navigating his own pocketbook. Nobody was watching his funds and doing anything with his funds. This is just some wild, wild stuff going on here. Eerily similar, these cases. And yet they went on for so long. And naturally, witness tampering, coercion, blackmail is the reason people didn't come forward, because they probably realized, oh, they've got something on me. They've got video, audio of my interaction with this person. And naturally, this thing, like the other ones, would say, well, I got something on you. Are you sure you want to sue me? File charges against me for whatever? You want people to know what you've been doing in your spare time? Of course not.
The indictment alleges that those individuals facilitated the freak-offs. They booked the hotel rooms and stocked them with the supplies, including drugs, baby oil, personal lubricant, extra linens, and lighting. When the hotel rooms got damaged, they helped clean it up.
So here is where it's just hard to believe that people will go along with doing things for people, but it happens. People do stupid stuff for other people. Booking flights, transporting people around, jumping on planes, trains, making sure they're comfortable, getting clothes for them, drugs, whatever they need, alcohol, food, it's all the same, whatever the damn list is. You're going to hear a lot about the lubricants. It was hard for me to fathom when I first read one article. 1,000 bottles. Then when you go to another source, it'll say cases. I want you to just think about that for just a second. What normal person needs cases of baby oil, lubricants? You don't. I don't give a damn who you are. I don't give a damn who you are. Stockpiling cases of lubricants, baby oil. That shows you that this is what he was about, what he's about. Pleasuring himself, using people to pleasure himself. That's it. He's a user, manipulator, a thief, basically. But then the flip side is what you allow. Isn't that what we've been told? You ain't got to do it. You ain't got to go back. So that's my next question. How many people went back into the abyss with Sean Combs? Because you're hearing all these allegations against him, but you also have to ask yourself the obvious. If one, Miss Cassie stayed for 7 or 8 years and dealing with all these freak-offs and sex and menage a trois and quattro, whatever, you got to now ask yourself about the people that he hired. How many people went back into the abyss with Sean knowing he was abusive, mean, forced labor? You're going to hear that. This is even more baffling. The forced labor, he didn't even want to pay you, force you to stay to continue to stay and not pay you your money. Now, Sean is really lucky to be walking around because there may be some people that said, hey, oh, hell no. I don't give a damn about being Sean Combs. I want my paper. And you got me in here doing all this old freaky deaky stuff, and I'm stupid enough to be going along with it for the almighty dollar, and then I ain't getting paid either. Oh, no, we got a problem, sir. So he definitely didn't get the right girl, as we would say in the street. He didn't get the right girl or the right guy because Sean would have been laying face down somewhere. I'm just saying. Nobody would have cared about no damn Sean Combs being no multi-millionaire or no music mogul. I'm keeping it real in this live. Streets don't care nothing about who you are. So obviously he didn't get the right clientele, let's say right workers that decided they wanted to go call Pookie and Ray Ray, if you get my drift.
They arranged for victims and commercial sex workers to travel for the freak-offs, and they delivered large quantities of cash to Combs to pay for the commercial sex workers. The indictment also alleges that they helped Combs cover up his crimes. During the March 2016 incident at the LA hotel that I mentioned earlier, a member of the hotel security staff intervened, and Combs attempted to bribe the staff member with a stack of cash to make sure that what happened was kept quiet.
So now we are going back to the Cassie incident at the hotel in Los Angeles. Will that person be testifying against Sean Combs? How did they find the person? Have they found the person? Woo, this is a hot butter mess. Because you see, everything was stair-step months back. From 23 up until 24. Everything was stair-step. Cassie comes out with the allegations. He settles a lawsuit day one, which to me, it shows me you're guilty. Because if I ain't done nothing to you and I feel like I ain't done nothing to you, I'm not going to give you none of my money. I'm not going to pay you nothing. You go get your lawyer, and my lawyer, we talk back and forth until somebody fold, but it ain't going to be I. Why would I fold when I know I haven't done anything to you? So see, he opened up Pandora's box when he paid Cassie day one, not day two, not week one, not 1 month, day one. Now, people will say, that isn't a sign of guilt. His lawyer said it. Oh, that's not an admission of guilt. The hell it ain't. Hell yeah, it is. You didn't even let the allegation dry on the damn piece of paper. It was still wet. And then here comes everybody else. He did this, he did this, he did this. Like with Lil Rod, I definitely don't understand what the hell he's talking about. I believe some of that stuff he said, don't get me wrong, but where I have the problem with Lil Rod, you a man. We're not talking about a woman being gullible and following behind a guy because she likes him and he's using, abusing her, holding things over her head, paying her bills, blah, blah, blah. She feels obligated. Maybe she's, addicted to the fame as well, but she cares for him too. However it went, because I'm not about to speak for what her feelings were for him. But a grown man being allowed, just going along with this foolishness, the drugs, the coercion, the touchy-feely, the bringing in the sex workers, you had to like that at some point, because I just refuse to believe a grown man would even allow another man to touch him, grope him, insinuate anything, invite other people into the company without bucking up. I don't give a damn if you 5'5". You should have had some balls on you and let Sean know, hey, bruh, I ain't interested. The fact you stayed in his house for a year, that's baffling to me. Now, some will say, well, Queen, you can't judge either or. You do have weak-minded men. Well, obviously. Because I'm going to go ahead and say it, and some people may not want to hear it. You know I don't care. Hell, were you dating him? Because you were acting like her. You acting like Cassie. I said that. Let's keep it real. Because your allegations are similar to hers. So what are we talking about here? Are we talking about a man who was having sex with Sean Combs? Checkmate. A man who refused to admit, he was having sexual relations with Sean Combs. Because I got a feeling that's really what this is about, is it not, sir? You don't want to put on paper that you really were entangled with him. Because you can't explain it logically, because most people aren't going to understand it. Most men are going to tell you, ain't nobody getting ready to force me to do nothing. I'm a man. Whether they beat me up, shoot me, cut me, I'm a man. And I say no, that's what I mean. And so you talk about going from working with a person to sleeping in her house, living in her house, and then all these other allegations of parties and freak-offs. That's just not going to sit well with the average person. I don't care if you're a man or a woman. Nobody's going to understand that, and I don't. Not with a man, I don't. Hell no. So I'm looking at you like, well, what the hell did you have going on in your life that you felt like you had to be a part of this nonsense, and you rolled the ride as well? You didn't bring a formal complaint until after this girl brings a complaint. Cassie, it's weird. That's all I'm saying.
And as the indictment alleges, in late 2023, after public allegations were made about Combs' crimes, he and others pressured witnesses and victims to stay silent, including by making phone calls to witnesses and victims and giving them a false narrative of what they had experienced.
The false narrative, Sean. Who were you calling? Cassie? Now, baby, you know it didn't go down like that. You know I loved you. I'm sorry for everything I did to you. I'm sorry. I know I'm a monster. Did it kind of go like that? You know, black men, they can show big and lie really well. I said that. It wasn't me. I'm sorry. It wasn't me. I'm sorry, baby. I apologize. Ooh, Lord, have we heard it before? Of course, not in these type of circumstances, but you understand. A lie is a liar. What Eddie Murphy said once before in one of his stand-up routines, wasn't me. Wasn't me. Didn't go down like that, baby. Why you saying these ugly things about me? You know that wasn't me. That ain't Sean. I ain't like that. Please, stop. Make it go away. Now imagine having that on video, audio. Shut your mouth. Because I'm sure she does. Sean, how many people have you called to stop this train wreck? Because I surely want to know. How many people have you called to say, please don't say anything. I'll pay you if you keep quiet? Because I'm sure they've got that on audio as well. You begging and pleading, or God forbid, threatening people to not file any charges against you. And that's where you have messed up. you recorded everything foolishly. We had heard that you had cameras all through your houses, your homes, and that is what's going to take you down because you foolishly taped your rendezvous, freak-offs, and I won't doubt that some of these people probably taped you blackmailing them and telling them not to talk. You are indeed a fool.
And as alleged, Combs used others to help conceal his abuse by monitoring and preventing victims from leaving a location in order to hide their injuries, or by locating and contacting a victim who had attempted to flee.
And now here I believe he's talking about Cassie, because we learned that he had, injured her face, and I believe she probably hid out for a while at that time as not to alert people to what happened to her. But we know in the real world, people have to go to work and have real jobs. So they really can't lay out and hide after being beat up by their partner. Isn't that right? But when you're living off the kindness of others, you don't really have a substantial career or job, you can hide out and hide your face and wear sunglasses and paint makeup on you to hide your injuries. My. Once again, how many other people are going to be looped into this debacle and charged alongside Sean Puffy Combs? Or will they try to barter with the state, take a plea deal? Is this only going to be about Sean? Are we going to find out there are other famous people involved in the coercion, the freak-offs, abuse of workers, other interested parties that were having sex, group sex, and they were abused in some form or manner? Who else is going to also go down with Sean Combs?
As part of this investigation, in March of this year, special agents from HSI executed search warrants at Combs' residences in Miami and Los Angeles. They also executed a warrant for Combs' electronic devices. During those searches, agents seized evidence of the crimes charged in this indictment. They seized firearms and ammunition, including 3 defaced AR-15s and a large capacity drum magazine.
So for those who do not know, in the state of Florida, you are allowed to have AR-15s in your possession, but they cannot be defaced, which means serial numbers cannot be scratched off of the weapons. So, Sean, where did you get the weapons? Black market? Where? Who got them for you? We know they can't be legal because why are you going to scratch off the serial number? Are you also a licensed carrier? Now you factor in drugs in the same house with weapons, you definitely have a problem. You're going to go down just for that with no sex trafficking charges or racketeering or conspiracy. Say it again, Queen. Drugs in the same vicinity with weapons is an automatic boom. And the fact that they're defaced and seized from Florida, don't know if all 3 were in the one house, the mansion down there, or if they were separate, it still ain't good. The state says serial numbers have to be on the damn weapons. So, Sean, where'd you get the weapons? This man is just a damn idiot.
They also seized evidence of the freak-offs, electronic devices that contain images and videos of the freak-offs with multiple victims. And they seized cases of the kinds of personal lubricant and baby oil that Combs' staff allegedly used to stock hotel rooms for the freak-offs, more than 1,000 bottles altogether.
Bingo card. Audio, video of the freak-offs. Can they make out the people in the video? Nighttime, daytime, different times. Which homes did you get this audio from? Or is it from cell phone, iPads, laptops, combination? This man is just stupid. Got to have evidence of my handiwork. That's what a sadist, that's what they do. They got to have evidence. It's not enough to just be engaged in the activity, the abuse, the assault. I got to have a replay, repeat. I got to see it in action again, over and over and over. Can you imagine how embarrassing this is to be treated like pure trash in a sex activity with somebody, whether you're getting paid or not? And now they have filmed you and they're just sitting here gawking at what they've done to you over and over again. Wow. Sean, you something else with yourself. We had heard enough with R. Kelly, Weinstein, Epstein. And R. Kelly probably sitting somewhere thinking to himself, well, see, there's others just like me. But why y'all doing that to Diddy? Well, because God don't like ugly. And every dog has his day. And now it's Sean's time. As one of the rappers said that was affiliated with him, it ain't your time to shine. Well, look at Sean now. He had the opportunity to shine, and he used that opportunity that God gave him. And he's like a lot of people. He's ornery as fuck. He's ornery. As my mama used to say growing up, you think your shit don't stink. Old black folk terminology. He thought his shit didn't stink. He got high up on the horse and he didn't want to come off. And he did whatever he had to do to stay up there. Not the right way, to just live, be happy, be peaceful, give back to the community, be a good father, be a good partner, be a good husband. Oh, no, that wasn't good enough. I got to go below the belt. I got to do some old freaky deaky type stuff. And hey, what you do in your bedroom is your business. But when you start talking about pulling hair, beating up people, paying for sex workers, forcing people to have sex with different people, sex workers, man, you're doing too much. You're some other SHIT. That's not necessary. But he's a sadist. That's the point. And what's even more interesting, imagine he's not wealthy. Bingo card. Oh, yeah, I know how to punch you in your gut now. Imagine Sean is not wealthy. He's just a regular old bloke walking around town. He's just the garbage man, the manager of McDonald's. Ooh, shut your mouth. Now imagine that.
Here are some of the items that we recovered during the searches.
They're going to go into the weapons. Many of you have probably already seen the photographs aired pertaining to the weapons. We learned that he had an AR-15 broken down in his bedroom. So it wasn't put together. So my thing is, if something had happened, such as a break-in, what were you going to do? Go run up if you woke up, try to put the damn magazine together? Man is a fool. I would assume the AR-15 should have been put together. Like, I don't understand it. Because if you get a break-in in your house, even though I'm sure you had high security, top security, people are crafty. Wouldn't it make sense to have the gun already together? This is ridiculous.
Large capacity. And it contains, I believe, 59 rounds. I mentioned as well, we recovered 3 AR-15s. This is a close-up shot of one of the AR-15s, and you can see right here, the serial number has been thoroughly defaced. Another picture of more ammunition and parts of 2 AR-15s right there.
3 AR-15s.
Now, I want to be clear about 2 things. First, this office is determined to investigate and prosecute anyone who engages in sex trafficking, no matter how powerful or wealthy or famous you may be. No one should doubt our commitment on that. A year ago, Sean Combs stood in Times Square and was handed a key to New York City.
Yes, he was.
Today, he's been indicted and will face justice in the Southern District of New York. Second, we are not done. This investigation is ongoing, and I encourage anyone with information about this case to come forward and to do it quickly. Anyone with information can call 1-877-4-HSI-TIP. I want to express my deep appreciation for the victims and witnesses who have used their voices and helped bring this criminal conduct to light. We would not be here without them. I also want to thank the dedicated case agents on the HSI Trafficking in Person Squad in New York. They have been with us since day one and have worked tirelessly on this investigation. They will continue to be invaluable partners to us. I also want to thank the incredible agents and analysts from SDNY who have also provided tremendous assistance on this case. I'm deeply grateful for their continued work. And finally, I want to thank the outstanding career prosecutors from SDNY who are handling this case. Meredith Foster, Emily Johnson, Chrissy Slavik, Madison Smizer, and Mitzi Steiner, and their supervisors, Jamie Backleiter and Jacqueline Kelly. They are members of the Civil Rights Unit in our criminal division. We created the Civil Rights Unit when I became U.S. Attorney. I'm deeply proud of their work on this and so many other cases. I'll now take some questions.
Aaron Katursky, ABC.
Damian, thanks. The indictment describes aggressive, open, violent, hedonistic abuse that you say was recurrent and widely known. Why did it take law enforcement so long to intervene? How many women were victimized by Sean Combs and how many others were involved?
Well, our investigation is ongoing. We are committed to bringing justice to everyone who's been victimized by the defendant. I can't tell you why it took so long. I think the better focus is on the fact that we are here today. And we are committed to making sure that justice is done. Next question.
Julia Ainsley, NBC.
Thank you for doing this. You said we are not done and that Combs did not do this alone. Do you foresee that there could be other charges related to this case?
I'm not taking anything off the table.
Janet Fisher, Newsday.
What's the difference between the sex trafficking and promoting travel for the purpose of prostitution?
Well, there are different crimes with different elements. I don't think we should get into the nitty-gritty of the legal discussion right now.
Promoting travel.
The sex trafficking, we believe, they're all serious offenses, but the sex trafficking conduct carries some significant penalties, and we are gratified that we were able to bring that charge.
One more coercive than the other?
I'm not going to be able to get into that, but you can look it up.
Yes.
And yes, sex trafficking, especially when it involves coercion or force, is a very serious crime, and it carries significant penalties.
Good afternoon, Darla Miles, ABC7 New York. Thank you for this press conference and for the details. 2 questions. In context of this indictment and the information that was presented to the grand jury, are you able to clarify the number of victims? It's mentioned plural in the indictment, but can you specify the number of victims just for this particular indictment? And secondly, can you provide details about the alleged arson?
Unfortunately, I'm not able to provide either. The number of victims, you are correct. We are intentional in saying multiple. The details of the arson incident are limited to what we have in the indictment and also the detention letter that we filed, which contains more details than the indictment does at various points, but we don't have anything more beyond that. Next question.
Okay, I want to interject here. Don't know how many victims are in this indictment, but the fire, the arson, that's just, I'd heard about that. This just shows you he is no different than R. Kelly, using other people to commit crimes against people, women, men, whomever. You can't get your way. I believe that this is stemming from a guy that was liking Cassie. She was dating him, and he was angry that they were dating. So he decided to exact revenge against this guy. This is no different than what a woman claimed with R. Kelly. Same thing. going by her home, riding by, harassing her family, messing with one of their cars in the driveway or on the street, belonging to these people. This is, Lord have mercy. This is crazy. Arson. Beating up people. We heard about that. Beating up one of the guys. Might be the same guy that this arson is about. Okay? Kidnapping. This man is crazy. He was a badass. That's why he gave himself that name, I guess. Bad boy. Literally. Bad boy, bad boy. What you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? They came already, did they not? Checkmate. That's why he was in New York at the hotel staying. He already knew what was coming down. For those that did not know that, he had moved back to New York because he already got wind of this debacle. And I bet you he didn't plan on being detained. So the state sought detainment for him to be in a detention center. No bail. Sean has no bail, for those who did not know. And what's even more crazy, super lawyer offering $50 million bail. Why would you want to do that when the man's already trying to sell all his properties or sell some of his properties or assets? Like, you don't offer bail to the court. You let them set the damn bail. You don't say, hey, by the way, I give you $50 million, you let me walk free. Hell no. Now, $50 million will go a long way in the New York court system, but they declined. Because we're going to hear that information too later. What the judge had to say about why she denied Sean Combs bail.
Lynn Tran, CNN.
Are any of his accomplices or associates under investigation? And additionally, could he face any more charges?
So the investigation is ongoing. That means both as to him and to anyone else who we believe committed the crime with him. Next question.
Julia Papa.
Hi, good morning from 1010 Wins. Any indication that some of the women or victims here were imprisoned in his residences, and did he have locations where he kept them, and were not allowed to leave? And also, he's indicted here, although there were searches and raids in LA, Miami. Why in New York?
Well, I'm biased. I'm the U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of New York. I think that we have an outstanding track record of bringing some of the most impactful, sprawling, complex, difficult sex trafficking, human trafficking, labor trafficking, you name it. The Southern District of New York can do it, and so we're very proud of that. And so the scope and complexity of this investigation isn't something that we ran from. It's something that we embrace, and we will continue to do that. As to your question about whether he imprisoned anyone, all I can say is that, I mentioned this March 2016 incident where something was caught on video where a victim was attempting to flee, and there was violence that was associated with it. That was at a hotel.
Matthew Lee, Intercity Press.
Thanks a lot. Does your office intend to seek remand, or are you reaching a bail package? And if you're willing, how would you contrast this with the R. Kelly case in EDNY in terms of the elements? Thanks.
So we will be seeking detention. We have filed a letter laying out our reasoning for seeking pretrial detention. I'm not going to be able to expand beyond what's in the letter, but it contains all of the reasoning, and it contains the law as well. There is a presumption of detention in a case like this, and we think that's warranted.
Johnny East, New York Daily News.
Thank you. I was hoping to get some more detail about the searches of his residence, the guns, the cases of lubricant, and the videos. Where were they found amongst his residence? Were they all scattered around the houses in one place? I kind of wanted to just get a better picture of how that stuff was found.
Well, look, I think that some of the details that you're seeking are in the detention letter. So, for instance, some of the AR-15s, two of the three defaced AR-15s were found in his bedroom closet in Miami, broken down into parts along with magazines with ammunition loaded in them. So some of that detail is in the detention letter. beyond that, I'm not going to be able to get into where other items were stored.
Ben Kochman, Post.
Hey, thanks for giving
Cases
this.
of lubricants.
Um,
I can't.
Your office was the office that had been prosecuting Jeffrey Epstein before he died in custody. I have not read your detention memo yet. It's the first thing I'm going to do after this ends. But does the memo address, or is your office concerned with Combs' safety in custody, given what happened with Epstein?
So we are concerned with anyone's safety whenever they are detained prior to trial. It's part of our obligations to keep people safe as well. It's part of the criminal justice system. So, but I do not draw any sort of connection between Jeffrey Epstein's suicide and what may or may not happen to any other defendant while they are detained pre-trial. And of course,
do you all believe that they're concerned about a person? Safety before pre-trial? Maybe high-profile cases they care, but I don't know if they really care about other people who commit crimes. Think about it. A lot of people go to jail for crimes: sexual assault, fraud, theft, various crimes. Are you really concerned with the other people that's going to jail, housed in jail, couldn't make bond, bail? I'm just saying. I don't know if I believe that. I think you'd be concerned about him because you want him to be able to go down for the crime. But some other guy, would you be just as concerned who committed some crimes? Maybe a serial rapist or something. I'm just saying. Just asking. Somebody that stole some old lady's purse and racked up thousands of dollars on a credit card. Would you feel the same way versus this situation with Sean Puffy Combs? Say what, don't dive? The package. What happened to that package? Denied. What package? What are you talking about? What are you saying, huh?
the decision whether to detain the defendant will be up to a judge. Our position is that pretrial detention is warranted under the law and based on the facts of this case. And I'll leave it at that.
Are some of the prosecutors on this case some of the same prosecutors that had been handling that or that worked on the Maxwell case?
So I'm not going to get into the staffing. I will say that this team, this group of AUSAs, this incredible group has been working on this case around the clock, and they've had their hands full.
So you got reporters asking about Miss Ghislaine Maxwell, if those U.S. attorneys were that worked her case or on Sean's case. So he's not trying to get into the ins and outs of who worked which case and who's working on Sean's case. I'm sure it'll come out once you see them in court if they look familiar to those who worked Miss Maxwell's case. Very interesting question. I'm sure Sean is not feeling good right about now. Here's a man who's used to opulence, white sheets, white clothes, white breeches, white tux, white jackets, white shirts, to now be in a nasty jail, filthy jail. We've heard the horrible stories of what jail is like, certain jails. And I don't think where he is great. So imagine going from fine linen, fine sheets, so many counts, to a cot, well, nasty blanket somebody else done slept on. You know where I'm going. Not a good feeling, I'm sure. And he's sick because more than likely he's not going to ever get a bail. He's not going to get no bail because they could have easily given him one. He's not going to get one.
Next question.
Gus Rosadell, NBC News.
Good morning, sir. Combs' attorney said that his client has been cooperative with investigators. He said that this morning. I was wondering if you would have a reaction to that.
Let me just say this. I think that generally with increasing frequency, the word cooperative or cooperating has taken on tremendous elasticity and no longer really bears any relation to what the word means when we use it in a very specific context. So responding to lawful process and the like does not qualify as cooperation when we use that term here.
Thanks.
So what does that mean when he says him responding? It's not their terminology for cooperation. So what did he do or didn't do that you all agreed or disagreed? We're curious. Did you ask him to provide certain things that he would not do? Did he respond in a timely fashion upon phone calls or not? What are you speaking of per se? Just curious. Because in order for you to make that commentary, you have a reason for making it. So what did he do and not do, Sean Combs, that would not be considered cooperation? I'm curious.
Zach, AP?
Thanks. To that end, was there any discussion of Mr. Combs surrendering? I understand he was taken into custody at a hotel in Manhattan last night, and maybe that wasn't the plan. Can you elaborate on how that came about and why that was?
I'm not going to be able to get into any sort of operational details as to how he was taken into custody and when. He is in custody right now. He will be appearing in court later today.
Was there any discussion of him surrendering, given they claim he's cooperating?
I'm not going to be able to get into law enforcement tactics or operations.
Well, what's the big deal? Why not? Why you don't want to say? People are curious. Why not? So Sean was staying in a hotel, not his own house, penthouse. Interesting. I also read he'd been here for a couple of weeks in New York for a couple of weeks, anticipating this indictment. Because naturally, law enforcement will let your attorneys know what they plan to do. And it's up to you how you want to, navigate showing up for court or being arrested or turning yourself in. So I'm curious to that as well. You all knew what you were going to do, and when you were going to serve the paperwork, why not ask him, hey, you want us to arrest you at your hotel house, or do you want to surrender and turn yourself in? That's an interesting question. So then they give him the option. Hey, we're coming to your hotel house today at such and such time, or you can turn yourself in. Interesting. So if they didn't tell him they were coming, then people are going to wonder, well, that's contradictory to him showing up in New York and staying for weeks because he was anticipating the indictment. So why not just tell him, hey, we're coming to get you around 9 o'clock in the morning. Be ready, be dressed. Be ready, be dressed. All this is peculiar. But there's just some interesting questions about that. But you hear this gentleman say, we're not going to go into the tactics mention of how we got Mr. Holmes. But the point is, you still had to have told him because he was living in Miami. So why would he just go stay in New York, the same place where the indictment is? Because you told him. Just saying.
Well, I can't get into the charging decision. It is very meaningful to us that weapons were possessed, as we allege in the indictment. Part of the reason why this conduct was so pervasive and harmful was because victims and others didn't necessarily.
Racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, transportation to engage in prostitution are the 3 counts against Sean Puffy, Boy Love, P. Diddy, Combs. Racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, transportation to engage in prostitution. Wow.
We feel comfortable denying him his wishes, as we allege, because of the presence of firearms. I should leave it there.
Nice. Last question, Jacob Shamison.
Jacob Shamsian, Business Insider. Thank you. Given that he's the sole defendant in this case and that you allege he's part of a conspiracy that involves members of his companies, do you anticipate a superseding indictment that bring allegations against other members of those companies or other co-conspirators as well?
I can't take anything off the table. Anything is possible. Our investigation is very active and ongoing. And I think a lot of you who cover this office know that when we say such things, that developments are certainly foreseeable, but I cannot predict them sitting here today. All right, thank you, everyone.
Wow.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
We have been listening to the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York detail some very disturbing and graphic allegations in a newly unsealed indictment, a federal indictment against music mogul Sean Diddy Combs. That was Damian Williams. And I want to go ahead and bring in CBS News correspondent Jerika Duncan, who is outside the courthouse. Jerika, what are we learning from this indictment that we didn't already know from many of the civil cases that have been brought against Combs? I understand the difference between civil and criminal. This being criminal, but what revelations have there been in this indictment?
Well, there's so much to discuss, for the U.S. Attorney of the Southern District, Damian Williams, to take as many questions as he did and really lay out what he could with this case gives us a better picture into what evidence they also say they have to make these charges. Again, if you're just tuning in, those charges: racketeering, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution. He called what Sean Diddy Combs organized a business empire that he said he controlled using kidnapping, bribery, saying that he exploited people, used force, threats. And when you really understand where all of this comes from, you have to go back to the lawsuit, that civil lawsuit that was fired by Combs's longtime ex-girlfriend. Mr. Williams mentioned that video that would later show up after he settled with her in that civil case, when she was claiming that he sexually assaulted her and beat her. And then we saw evidence of that months later in a 2016 video in a hotel where she is hit, kicked, and dragged. Those were the exact words that he used in this criminal case. Something else worth noting, Lindsay, is what he talked about when referencing what they were able to find with searching the home. He said that they searched and seized evidence, 3 defaced AR-15s, evidence of freak-offs. Again, this was a term used in a civil suit, but now talking about it in the criminal form. He said also that this is not done, that there could be more people that are prosecuted as a result of this. But today, of course, the focus being on Sean Diddy Combs.
And Jerika, many reporters were quick to ask whether any more charges could be coming, because this indictment says that he did not do this alone. He was essentially enabled by the people around him, the apparatus that he built, according to prosecutors, as part of this criminal enterprise, again, according to the indictment, that essentially enabled this behavior and led to a pattern of coercion and intimidation.
Yeah, I mean, he said it again by saying we are not done. He even gave a phone number for people to call if they have any tips, because this is an ongoing investigation, as he said a couple of times. He also talked about other charges not being off the table. One of the first questions, though, I think that many people have had, this is someone who's been so well known, a business entrepreneur, a mogul for 30 years. And the question was, why did this take so long, and are there any other victims? He would not specify about how many victims there are allegedly, only to say that there's multiple based on that indictment. When it comes to why it took so long, he said the better focus should be that we are here today.
I mean, that is the question. He just got the key to New York City in 2023. He was asked to give it back. He did give it back, and yet here we are. Prosecutors saying that this behavior went on for decades. Jerika, we are expecting to learn more from this detention document that Williams kept mentioning, that they will be trying to seek pre-trial detention. What do we know about what that document will contain and when we might get it?
So we're working on getting that document right now. What I can tell you is that we're hearing that Combs is expected to appear in court now just after 2:30 this afternoon. So we're, of course, going to keep a close eye on that. As for the pretrial detention, essentially Williams is saying we want him to remain behind bars. We'll look at that document and get back to you in terms of the reasons, but they obviously feel that he's a threat to the public. When asked about his cooperation, he also mentioned that he said the word cooperating has taken on tremendous elasticity, and that responding to the law in their eyes is not necessarily cooperating with authorities. So we know that he's going to be in custody but we do know that they're not going to get into, at least Damian Williams saying they're not going to get into the why and when they took him into custody the way that they did as far as that investigation is concerned. But a lot came out of this. Also, I thought worth mentioning, having covered R. Kelly several times in both trials, he said that he was not going to compare or sort of contrast the two, but we do know that Homeland Security Investigations is the same group that really took on a bulk of the responsibility when it came to R. Kelly. Same group, again, looking at these charges that are also similar in nature when you think about sexual assault and sex trafficking.
Jerry Duncan, thank you so much. We'll see you at the top of the hour. And joining me right now is celebrity attorney Chris Melcher. Chris, obviously, we just heard that press conference. We were talking to you on the front end. Did not think that the U.S. attorney was going to get as graphic as he did because this is so disturbing, but he did. The nature of the allegations are disturbing. Your thoughts after that press conference?
Well, they certainly took their time, and that was a very well-crafted press conference where they were laying out a little bit more detail than we saw in the charging document. And I do have that detention letter, so that's a letter to the judge saying that Diddy should, or Mr. Combs should remain in custody pending trial. So that's pretty unusual.
Wow.
Many times somebody's going to be released on a bond. His attorney, according to that detention letter, had offered a $50 million bond to secure Mr. Combs' attendance at trial and also electronic monitoring. The government's saying that's not sufficient. That's not enough money to really dissuade Diddy from fleeing. And more importantly, it's alleged that he is a danger to the community, that he could dissuade witnesses from testifying. So what they're asking is that he be held in custody. He's in custody right now and they don't want him released. The judge will have to decide that, or magistrate, I should say, will decide that later today. But these are I mean, the conduct is depraved, multiple victims. And what is most significant to me is that these events were allegedly recorded and the government has those recordings. That's going to make it extremely difficult if for Diddy to defend himself if those recordings show coercion or violence.
Important point there. Chris, according to the indictment, law enforcement seized firearms and ammunition, including 3 AR-15s with defaced serial numbers and a drum magazine. How will that play in? We know as part of the allegations, they say that Combs regularly carried and even brandished weapons to create an atmosphere of intimidation.
Well, that is part of this allegation, that these women unfortunately became part of his orbit because he's famous, and that was his way of kind of preying on these folks. But then when they realized what was going on and wanted to escape, that he used threats and intimidation. And the allegation is weapons were displayed. And so we did see some weapons. Of course, it can be legal to own weapons in the U.S., but these were high-capacity magazines or defaced serial numbers. So depending on where those weapons were possessed, that could make it illegal and kind of demonstrate the intimidation or fear that allegedly was used against these women. We definitely saw that in the Cassie video, the 2016 hotel surveillance video. And I would note that Diddy initially denied that. He said she was looking for a payday, and that and then when we saw that video, we know that was untrue. So he is in a very difficult spot.
Exactly. She's looking for a payday, but yet you paid her within 1 day of the civil lawsuit being aired to the public. So who pays a person after saying they didn't do this to them, they want a payday, then you later apologize after the video airs months later from her civil lawsuit. So she brings out a lawsuit, you pay her within 1 day. Before that, you say it's all false, and then months later, we get this information in the spring of this year of the video. So it was stair steps. So this was orchestrated. Obviously, she wanted the world to know, how did all that information get out? How did she get a copy of the video of him assaulting her at the hotel? I'm curious to all of that. Will the person come forward that took the money from him from that hotel incident? Will they testify against Sean Puffy Combs? Who else is going to testify against him for abuse, forced labor? I think it's very baffling to know this man was paying people allegedly to have sex with him and her and other people, but then yet didn't want to pay and forced them to hang around and pull out weapons to make them stay to have sex. This is crazy. Let's hear from his lawyer, everybody.
Who's going to be watching Jesse and Delilah? Who's going to be watching the kids?
All right. So this was the first step. We have a bail appeal scheduled for tomorrow at 3:30 in front of Judge Carter, the district judge assigned to this case. I think that we made the points that we've been wanting to make. I think it came out. Mr. Combs is a fighter. He's going to fight this to the end. He's innocent. He came to New York to establish his innocence. He's not afraid. He's not afraid of the charges. There's nothing that the government said in their presentation today that changes anyone's mind about anything. He's been looking forward to this day. He's been looking forward to clearing his name, and he's going to clear his name. And we're going to stand by his side as he does. We believe in him wholeheartedly. He didn't do these things. This was a 10-year relationship. There's no coercion. There's no crime. There's basically just, someone who brought a civil case and now is finding themselves as a witness in a criminal case.
So you see how he says the lawyer saying 10-year relationship. So basically he's trying to make it seem like this, these allegations against Sean is just really about Cassie. Is that what we're hearing? Because that's how the lawyer is portraying it. He said this was a 10-year relationship. So you mean to tell me there are no other allegations against him in the indictment of this sex trafficking, racketeering, and transportation? Oh my. My.
With a witness in a criminal case. And we're going to fight this case with everything we have, as is he. And eventually he's going to be shown to be innocent. And so tomorrow we fight again. And we'll fight every day until we don't have to fight anymore. I don't know. The question is, why did it happen last night instead of today? I don't know the answer to that question. I just want to make one point very clear. We have no power. All we can do is show good faith. He got on a plane and he came here. And if he stayed here for one day before the case started, or for 1 year before the case started, he was going to stay as long as he needed to stay. It ends up being only 12 days. That's fine. That's what the government wanted to do. The government didn't want him to turn himself in. He came here to turn himself in. Why doesn't the government want him to turn himself in? Because then they can't ask for detention. So they go and they arrest him. They arrest the guy who came to New York to turn himself in. But we're going to make all these points again tomorrow, and we'll make it as much as we can until we get him out. So
that's what I asked before. Why didn't they let him turn himself in? I do find that interesting. So now you hear his lawyer say they didn't want him to turn himself in because they knew there'd be an issue with the detention, seeking detention. They could seek detention since they've arrested him. But if he turned himself in, I guess it would be easier for him to ask for a bail or a bond. It's very interesting. So I guess there's going to be some more going on with this case pertaining to his lawyers asking for a bail tomorrow.
We're appealing.
Oh, this keeps cutting off. Sorry about that. He says they're going to appeal.
We're appealing. We're no bail.
We're appealing it.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're appealing the decision to hold him without bail. Tomorrow at 3:30. 3:30, same place.
3:30 tomorrow. He went to court late today.
Bail.
Wonder why he never came out today.
Same court, different judge. He's doing fine.
Different judge.
He's a fighter and he's gonna fight this. All right, I'm gonna go. I don't get into that stuff.
All right. There's a short in the YouTube queue of his sons leaving the courthouse after they realized their father was not going to be released, and they didn't have a comment. The boys, reporters asking them questions, asking them how they were holding up. The one son looking like he's upset, pissed off. But I'd like to know if any of those young boys are going to be indicted as well, because we have an allegation from a young lady who was on one of the yachts belonging to Sean, and she feels as if she was drugged by one of the sons. that one of the sons put something in her drink. She became lightheaded. One of them kept trying to get her to take the drink. She didn't want it, so I guess she finally drank it, or sipped it or whatever to appease one of them, and then she started feeling funky. So will there be charges against one of his sons or both sons? I'm curious. And the allegations that are in this indictment, are they mainly pertaining to Cassie or other people? Because this is kind of looking like this is a Cassie type situation just from what his lawyer said. So we do need to pay close attention to what the lawyer said. He starts off this conversation with, they were in a relationship for 10 years. He doesn't mention other people. Oh, yeah, there's other people bringing forward allegations that he trafficked with or had sex with. He says they were in a 10-year relationship. So it looks like this is stair step from last year. She brought forward the civil suit. He settled it. Then months later, we get the video released to the public. So this seems like an orchestrated indictment. She comes out, sues, he settles it with her. Months later, the tape is released to the public, which I found interesting. And now we have the indictment fall 2024. So this seems orchestrated, this indictment from Cassie's civil lawsuit, that what she told originally got the jump off of everything you're hearing now, of the guns, the video, the drugs, the lubricant, the oil, the coercions, the sex trafficking, the sex workers, the forced labor. This is all obviously from Cassie, the way it's looking. And then they went out, naturally, is what you do. You go try to corroborate what this person has said about what this person has done to them, the allegations. So this is where they went hunting down the person who got the money, other people who work with Sean, other people who had sex with him, sex workers. How many people are we talking? From my understanding, about 50 or so witnesses have given testimony to authorities about their dilly-dallyings with this man. This is some bad, bad business. Really, really bad. I'm going to share this to my community page in case any of you need verification of this said information. WAAY 31 News is the source of that information. Everybody has content out now pertaining to Sean. I want to play something else. As most of you know, he's been denied bond. I'm going to go ahead and read you a little bit of information pertaining to the allegations against Sean. Then I'm going to check out of here. Thank you for your time. Welcome to the Vault Excel, everybody. Wow, wow, wow. And once again, Rich Homie Quan, his funeral was today in Atlanta, Georgia. Prayers to his family. I guess we'll wait on the autopsy report to tell us what he passed away from. It was a very interesting funeral, I must say. A judge denied Sean Diddy Combs' request for bail after the rapper pleaded not guilty to sex trafficking. Combs appeared in front of Robin F. Tarnowski in a Manhattan courtroom on Tuesday. Diddy was charged with racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution. If found guilty, he faces a minimum of 15 years behind bars or a maximum sentence of life in prison. The judge decided there were no conditions she could impose on Diddy. She pointed out sex trafficking is a crime that happens behind closed doors, and the rapper would be hard to monitor, even with pretrial monitoring services. The judge considered alternatives to detainment, but found they were not sufficient. Tarnowski conceded the weight of the evidence against Diddy is significant. Diddy's legal team plans to appeal the bail decision, as you heard in this commentary I just played. Mr. Combs is a fighter. He's going to fight this to the end. Diddy's lawyer said outside the courthouse following the arraignment, he's innocent. He came to New York to establish his innocence. He's not afraid. He's not afraid of the charges. There's nothing that the government said in their presentation that changes anyone's mind about anything. He's been looking forward to this day. He's been looking forward to clearing his name. and he's going to clear his name, and we're going to stand by his side as he does. He believe in him. We believe in him wholeheartedly. He didn't do these things. Well, that's not true, because at first the civil suit came out by Cassie, and then he paid her, and then later the video came out months later in 2024, and then he apologizes. So you can't say that these things aren't true and then stand here and say, oh, this is about her and him. They were together for 10 years. These things didn't happen, when he's paid her and then later apologizes after the video was released of him beating her up and dragging her down the hall in a damn hotel. The hell are you talking about? It did happen. And you better hope they don't find people that's going to testify to say, yeah, he paid me money, he beat me up, he held me in a room, he pulled out a gun. They can describe the house, describe the layout of the house. And then there are videos, sir, of your client sexually assaulting people, coercion, sex, whatever the hell he was doing in these videos. You sound ridiculous. You probably shouldn't say any damn thing. They have videos. They have the weapons. So if anybody can pull out of the blue and say, oh yeah, there was an AR-15, there was a this, it's already released now, so they can go ahead and say that he did pull a gun out of him, even if he didn't. Jesus Christ. When the lawyer is more stupid than the client. The U.S. District Attorney, attorney's office requested the judge deny Diddy's bail ahead of his Tuesday arraignment, characterizing the I'll Be Missing You singer as a potential flight risk. The attorney's office worried Diddy would possibly obstruct justice or threaten witnesses. The government pointed to his alleged decade-long history of violence and his pattern of abuse. The attorney's office indicated no bail conditions could address these possible issues. Now, I want us to be clear about two things. First, this office is determined to investigate and prosecute anyone who engages in sex trafficking, no matter how powerful or wealthy or famous you may be, U.S. Attorney Damian Williams said during a press conference earlier Tuesday. No one should doubt our commitment on that. Second, we are not done. This investigation is ongoing, and I encourage anyone with information about this case to come forward and to do it quickly, he added. The rapper entered the courtroom for his arraignment wearing a black t-shirt, khaki pants. He was not handcuffed, nor were his feet shackled. After sitting down next to his attorney, Combs glanced around the courtroom and looked at the jury box. Combs offered $50 million bond as part of a proposed bail package, according to a letter submitted by his legal team Tuesday and obtained by Fox Digital. This is crazy to me, Fox News Digital. In addition, Combs surrendered his passport to counsel on April 1st. His mother, Janice, and children, Chance, Jesse, Delilah, and Love Combs, each surrendered their passports under the bail proposal. So see, this goes back to April. So they already knew what they had in store for Sean Combs, and it's now September. And he had to have known that they were serious when they asked for the damn, the passports. And not only were his passports surrendered, they also asked for his children's passports. So this should tell you something here. Perhaps his children will be asked to testify, and they also could be charged alongside him, because we got information from a young lady, as I said before, that one of the sons, she felt like drugged her drink on a yacht where she was working and was trying to, make passes at her, trying to grope, so on and so forth. So will one of his sons or both be involved in this case as far as a defendant? Very interesting. So we have now all the children's passports being turned over. Mr. Combs' travel will be restricted to the Southern District of Florida and the Southern District of New York to attend court, meet with his counsel, and attend medical appointments. Which we will address to the court in a separate sealed submission, as well as Eastern District of New York or the District of New Jersey. Only the extent that his travel to and from New York involves an airport to those districts, the proposal stated. The defense also proposed the equity of Mr. Combs' residence on Star Island, which was appraised at $48 million and the equity in his mother's home in Miami, Florida. Combs has attempted to sell his airplane since April 2024. So what I understand is it says here that the defense proposed the equity of his home on Star Island, his home in Miami, and the equity in his mother's home. So why are you wanting to sell your mother's home? This is crazy. You don't want your mother to have anywhere to live? You have a home in LA, you have the home in Florida. So I'm assuming the girls, they stay in one of the homes. I don't know if they stay in the LA home or the Miami home. Maybe both. I'm not sure. So why are you trying to sell your mother's home? This is crazy to me. And I also thought he had a home in New York. And once again, he attempted to sell his plane in 2024 of April. On May 21st, 2024, counsel advised the AUSAs during a phone call that Mr. Combs had commenced efforts to sell his airplane, the proposal stated. Several potential buyers showed interest in purchasing the plane with a letter of intent signed just this weekend. The plane has not yet been sold. Defense agreed to keep the airplane in Los Angeles while Combs resided in Florida if the aircraft was not being chartered. The night he was arrested, the airplane was chartered from LA to Teterboro, New Jersey without Combs' knowledge, nor did he possess any control over its movement. Obviously, Mr. Combs agrees to not go to any state, in this case, New Jersey, in which his airplane is located pending its sale, which is actively being pursued, the proposal claimed. Combs also voluntarily relocated to New York on September 5th, ahead of his arrest, where his counsel then immediately informed the government of Mr. Combs' whereabouts. His legal team offered to continually share Mr. Combs' location with the government. The disgraced media mogul also offered home detention with GPS monitoring and all other standard conditions of pretrial supervision. Disturbing allegations were laid out against Diddy in an explosive indictment unsealed Tuesday. Authorities claim Diddy ran a criminal enterprise through his business, including Bad Boy Entertainment, Combs Enterprises, Combs Global, among others. He used firearms, threats of violence, coercion, verbal, emotional, physical, sexual abuse to fulfill his sexual desires, according to the unsealed indictment obtained by Fox News Digital. Combs and his employees would intimidate, threaten, lure female victims to Combs' orbit, often under the pretense of a romantic relationship. Wow, that's interesting. Combs allegedly then used force, threats of force, coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sex acts with male commercial sex workers that Combs referred to as, among other things, freak-offs. Diddy often provided IV fluids to his victims following freak-offs to recover from physical exertion and drug use, the indictment read. This is bad. During the raids on Diddy's homes in March, authorities seized freak-off supplies along with three AR-15s with defaced serial numbers. The court doc stated the feds took cases and cases of kinds of personal lubricant and baby oil that Combs' staff allegedly used to stock hotel rooms for the freak-offs. More than 1,000 bottles altogether, Williams said at the press conference. If you or someone has been sexually assaulted, please contact the National SA Hotline at 1-800-656-HOPE-4673 or go to RAINN, RAINN.org, all lowercase. Wow. That's a lot. So this is basically a case stemming from Cassidy's allegations. And then we saw with our own eyes what he did to her in that hotel room. So one would use deduction. He had done that to her before. So will we get information that he's done this to any other woman, beat or hurt any women? We did hear that he hit one other young lady. She looked like she was biracial, part Asian, part black. I think he hit her in the eye. So he is known to be abusive. We've seen that on tape. He did apologize, but he also denied all those allegations right before signing a undisclosed amount of money to her. So how much money did he pay Cassie? And why is your lawyer now still saying you haven't done any of these things? As I said before, many people are going to judge either parties. Why did he do this? Why did she stay so long with him doing this? Did any of these workers go back in and work for Diddy? Because that's going to be relevant too. Did any of these workers ever go back after being mistreated by him, not paid, to then hook up with him for payment, no payment? Because I think that's just crass. It's bad enough you're soliciting people for sex and saying you're going to pay them, and then when they're ready to go, naturally they're ready to go get their money. They got other things to do. You don't want to pay them. You want to keep them there. I mean, how much sex can you have? Let's be truthful. I don't care how much, if you like sex. At some point, you still got to eat, go to the bathroom. Come on now. How much sex can one person engage in? And we do know that there are some men and women, I'm sure, who can go for hours and hours having sex nonstop. But for days, this is outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. What a hot butter mess. There's something else I want to play for you guys before I check out of here. Just giving a recap of different opinions pertaining to the allegations against him. Hold on one second. Let's go to MSNBC and the charges. Thank you for joining me. All right, let me go over here and see if I can pull up this, because there were several things I wanted to play. Everything's on my community board if you need verification pertaining to these allegations against Sean.
Now, as former prosecutor and MSNBC legal analyst Kristen Gibbons-Fenton, she famously helped prosecute the case against Bill Cosby. MSNBC legal analyst and former prosecutor Christy Greenberg prosecuted sex crimes as an assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York. And NBC legal correspondent Lisa Rubin is with me here on set. Let's talk about the charges, and I think related to the depth of them is that we just learned the defense is proposing a $50 million bond in an attempt to get their client released.
Well, I think the fact that they're proposing a $50 million bond speaks to how serious the charges against Sean Combs are. So let's go through them from top to bottom. The first is a racketeering conspiracy charge. And I'm sure when some of our viewers hear that, their eyes glaze over. But essentially what that means is that Sean Combs built an enterprise consisting of his businesses, but also of personal employees and people loyal to him to help him basically accomplish these sex crimes with which he has been charged. And not only did they help him accomplish these sex crimes, they did a bunch of other criming with him, according to prosecutors, in order to cover it up or to keep his victims silent. He's also been charged, Chris, with sex trafficking under force or coercion or transportation with the intent to engage in prostitution. And critical to the allegations are the severity of the violence alleged: use of guns, forced drugging, arson, and kidnapping, all alleged and suffused throughout not only this indictment, but the detention letter that prosecutors sent to the judge today, where they outline in 16 pages why Sean Combs should not be released from federal custody prior to his trial. That's why you see Sean Combs and his lawyers saying, hey, we'll put up a $50 million bond package consisting of a $48 million home that I own outright and other things.
So, Kristen, I want to play some of what we heard earlier from prosecutors.
What I find weird is that you're saying he owned one of these homes outright, but we got information a few months ago that he owed a lot of money on these homes, such as mortgages. So when I think of owning something outright, I think of I don't owe a mortgage. Maybe everyone has a different interpretation of owning property. Owning a car. When I say I own my car outright, that means I don't owe a note on the car. I don't owe a loan on the car. It ain't buy here, pay here. I own it. I got the title to the car. That's what I think of when a person says outright. And I would say the same for a house, a boat, a yacht, a jet. It's all the same to me. If I tell you I own the car, that means I don't own nothing on the car. I own the house. I don't own anything. So how can you own something outright, but yet months ago they said you had all these damn loans on the houses, mortgages that hadn't been paid? So that doesn't make any sense. You don't own it. The bank owns it. There's a difference. And I don't understand how a person can have a whole lot of money and don't own something. So are they talking about his mother's house he owns outright? Let me repeat that again, because I'm a little confused.
Sent to the judge today, where they outline in 16 pages why Sean Combs should not be released from federal custody prior to his trial. That's why you see Sean Combs and his lawyers saying, hey, we'll put up a $15 million bond package consisting of a $48 million home that I own outright and other things.
So, Kristen, I want to play some of what we heard earlier from prosecutors.
Right. Well, I guess everything's about interpretation.
This office is determined to investigate and prosecute anyone who engages in sex trafficking, no matter how powerful or wealthy or famous you may be. No one should doubt our commitment on that. A year ago, Sean Combs stood in Times Square and was handed a key to New York City.
Yeah, pay that back.
He's been indicted and will face justice in the Southern District of New York.
So to me, honestly, Kristen, that sounds pretty straightforward, but then I read the indictment. And the level of depravity that's just alleged there, that's described there, it's certainly nothing I've ever seen, but you have the experience. Put it into context for us.
Yeah, so what happens is, and I think one of the things that's interesting, Chris, and he was actually asked this at the press conference about, okay, if you have this indictment that outlines this depravity, how is it that just a year prior you give him the key? How is it that we didn't know that any of this was going on? And one of the things that I think is really important is that throughout the pre-detention letter that Lisa was alluding to, they talked to, I think they said they gave around 300 grand jury subpoenas, spoke to around 50 victims and witnesses who are able to really substantiate or corroborate one another with the allegations that are set forth in this indictment. So I think one of the things is, well, then how did this go on so long? But you have to remember that sexual assault, particularly when it's against someone as powerful as Puff Daddy, particularly when you have the facilitation of some type of intoxicants, you're talking about ketamine and all of those drug-fueled parties, and then you go up against someone whose reputation is such that he was awarded the key to the city, you have a very large power imbalance, which further levels onto that coercion and further forces victims to be silenced. So that level of depravity, even though it's so horrific, can really cause it to be silenced when you have someone as powerful as Puff Daddy.
Yeah, Christy, to be honest with you, again, when I read through it, it was like, how did this go on for so long, again, allegedly, and no one spoke up, or, I mean, there have been other cases in the past related to him, but let me ask you what you, as someone who has prosecuted sex.
Let me break up in here because I said I was going to give you a definition of ketamine. We also heard this drug used by Matthew Perry, who's no longer alive. Ketamine is a dissociative anesthetic used medically for induction and maintenance of anesthesia. It is also used as a treatment for depression and in pain management. Okay? Ketamine is an NMDA receptor antagonist, which accounts for most of its psychoactive effects. It has some hallucinogenic effects. It distorts perceptions of sight and sound and makes the user feel disconnected. So that would be perfect for somebody wanting to use and abuse a person, take advantage of them, have people engage in sexual acts that they may not be down with. So this would be the perfect drug. Dear Lord, why would anybody want this? Let's get the side effects. I'm going to type that in as well. Hold on one second, because I'm curious about that. agitation, depression, cognitive difficulties, unconsciousness, and amnesia. Wow. Amnesia. Well, that would be perfect for this type of freak-offs. Not to know anything, remember anything. This is crazy to me.
Crimes at the SDNY. What stands out to you in the indictment?
So one thing I would say in prosecuting sex trafficking cases, oftentimes they are undetected for decades, like this one. I unfortunately have prosecuted sex trafficking cases that have gone on for decades. And a lot of the reasons why the victims don't say anything earlier are, even when the facts are different across cases, the ultimate reasons tend to be the same, because these traffickers know that they can instill a culture of fear. And that culture of fear really prevents them from speaking up. Here you had force, you had violence, you had U.S. Attorney Damian Williams saying that these victims felt they could not leave because their own security was at risk if they did. And there is actual video evidence of that when one of the victims was trying to leave a hotel room, trying to leave one of those freak-offs, and what happened? Sean Combs violently beat her. That is on tape. So to the extent any juror or any member of the public questions, well, why didn't she leave? You can see the evidence of why she didn't leave sooner. It's right there on tape. I will say that in terms of looking at this indictment and looking at the detention letter that was submitted by the prosecutors here, this is among the strongest sex trafficking cases I have seen, because you have the conduct on tape. These freak-offs are on tape, found in videos, in Sean Combs' own personal devices. You have recorded calls where he is then trying to have them and engage in a false narrative to conceal his the evidence of the crime once it was determined that the law enforcement officials were looking into this. That evidence is damning. In addition to having the victims coming forward and corroborating one another's accounts, the fact that you have video evidence they can see and hear Mr. Combs threatening and hurting victims, I mean, this case really seems incredibly strong.
So given that, given the details, given the strength of the case that the prosecutors say they have, Lisa, what will the judge consider if they offer this $50 million so he can be free while this case is going to trial?
As Christy and Kristen know well, the dangerousness of the individual to the community, as well as the likelihood that they will and have the capacity to flee, are two factors that a judge considers. One of the things that Sean Combs' lawyers have told the judge is acknowledging that he owns a plane. They say that there's a letter of intent to sell that plane, and as part of that, he won't take the plane right now. But where you have a defendant who owns private aviation, the capacity to flee is there. The other thing is that the dangerousness of Sean Combs should not be underscored. In addition to the allegations of literally hitting, dragging, kicking his victims, I'm reading from the detention letter now, there's an incident where he and a co-conspirator kidnapped an individual at gunpoint to facilitate breaking and entering into the residence of another. Approximately 2 weeks later, according to prosecutors, co-conspirators then set fire to that individual's vehicle, and that multiple witnesses would testify to the defendant, meaning Sean Combs, bragging about his role in destroying individual one's car. This is not a white-collar defendant who has committed alleged securities fraud. This is a person who is a danger to the community and a danger to women, according to the Southern District of New York, Chris.
So we have less than a minute, but let me ask you, Kristen, what happens today? What happens next?
So today the judge will most likely determine whether or not he will detain Puff Daddy or whether he will allow him to remain on the streets, as we say, with certain bail conditions intact. He's either going to put him right to jail or he's going to say, hey, you got to sell that plane. You've got to surrender your passport. There may be certain things in place, such as electronic monitoring or anything along those lines. But I think that there is a strong case for him to be detained throughout the pendency of these criminal proceedings.
And we will have our crew.
And that's exactly what happened. He was detained. I'm going to go back to look at some of this information about the bail bond that his defense had proposed. Hold on one second, everybody. He has been detained and denied bond, if you are curious. passports were surrendered months ago, his and his children, which I find very interesting. Why would a judge ask the children to surrender their passports? It's very interesting. Okay. This is what his defense had proposed as far as his bail. A $50 million bond, co-signed by Sean Combs and family, secured by equity in Combs' Miami home valued at $48 million, and secured by equity in Combs' mother Miami home. I find that interesting that you would want to put up your mother's home as collateral for a bond bail, knowing she has to have somewhere to live. So one would say, well, would he run, putting up this money in these homes and then go flee off on his jet somewhere and not show up to court, not show up for the proceedings? I don't know, because desperate people do desperate things. You're entitled to your opinion. But I find it interesting that he would even want to put equity up in his own mother's home. This is baffling to me. This is my said commentary pertaining to Sean. I feel like he's in this place because this is where he wanted to be. He had a choice in life, and this is the choice that he chose. He could have been a regular citizen out here living high off the hog, celebrating, having parties, functions. If he wanted to have 5 different women, 6 different women, he wanted to engage in homosexual activity with men, that's his business. But he chose to do other nefarious business with people, with this prostitution, traveling, taking them from place to place, flying them from place to place, abuse, not wanting to pay the people he's hired that were prostitutes. He's just a dog. And now all these sins have found him out. So all this gaslighting women, men, blackmail, calling people, threatening them, not wanting them to testify, not wanting them to get with the U.S. attorney to talk, it has all come to fruition. The fact that he had cameras in his house, he's filmed all these sexual acts and people going about in his home, it just shows you he's a deviant. And he is a threat to society. And that's why he is detained right now in a New York City jail, because he's a deviant. And that's just the bottom line. And he's another R. Kelly, Weinstein, Epstein. And what's next? Who's next to be arrested doing the same type of behavior? And as I said before in my commentary during this live stream, imagine Sean Puffy Combs as a regular citizen. He'd probably be locked up. You know what I'm saying? Because he wouldn't have the money to do all the things he's been doing, to hide these sins and blackmail and use coercion. I'm not saying he couldn't have done it as a regular person, that was just a regular old guy with a regular income, but he would have effed up at some point. He would have effed up. He'd probably be locked up from all his little beatings and draggings of women. And as I said before, this case seems to stem from Cassie's complaint against him, civil suit. I believe the state attorneys saw the information and they decided to follow suit and bring forth the case here pertaining to him. What I find interesting is that it's out of New York. Why is it out of New York? Because where did she file the complaints? I'm curious. I was thinking she lived in LA. So it's interesting that he got arrested in New York, turned himself into New York. It's also interesting that they didn't allow him to turn himself in, but they arrested him instead. Why didn't they allow him to turn himself in? As you heard the lawyer say in his commentary in this live, well, they knew to arrest him. That way they could detain him. But had he turned himself in, they knew he would be in the right to ask for a bond, bail. Very interesting information. I'm going to ask a few questions off my polls. Hello, everybody in the chat. Hello, Mr. Peter. Is P. Diddy a danger to the community? I just put up that poll, so nobody's answered it yet. P. Diddy denied bail, right or wrong? 99% says right. 1% says not sure out of 67 votes. Wow. I also asked you all 20 hours ago pertaining to the Sebastian Rogers case. The protection orders against Bullhorn Betty, have they gone too far by the Proudfoots and the Bower Sox? 58% said yes, 33% said no, 9% said not sure out of 102 votes. Also, should court clerks sell crime evidence? 6% yes, 91% no, 3% says not sure out of 114 votes. And also posted a picture of Mr. Proudfoot looking like a bigger version of Billy Ray Cyrus. Hair thinning on top, hair shaded on the side, and hair hanging in the back. A $2 mullet, which only type of men that wear their hair like that are usually country bumpkins. I said that. That's my opinion. Thanks for following this live stream. Feel free to go back to the beginning of the live to get the set information. But as I said before, I feel like Sean put himself in this predicament. And although his sins have found him out at the age of 54, 53, it is what it is. He'll be 55 in November. Civil suits started last year, and now he's been indicted. And he should have known what time of day it was when they asked for the passports in April, that the state wasn't playing with him and they meant business. And the fact that his children were asked to submit their passports, that's letting you know the hammer was going to come down. Sean Puffy Combs is now inside of a jail in New York. He has been denied bail. I gave you the reasons why the judge denied him bail. Feel free, as I said, to go back to the live stream and watch it from the front to the back, and you will hear why the judge felt like she had no other choice but to deny Sean Puffy Combs a bail. Thank you for your time. God bless all of you. Go to my community page for updates to breaking news, posts, polls. Also, movie of the week is No Exit, playing on Hulu. I may have suggested this movie a few years ago when I first saw it. It's a very good movie. I think most of you enjoyed. Those of you who like thrillers and mysteries, it's a very good movie. No Exit. Thank you for your time. You've been listening to The Vault XL.